So yes, so early on, my life experience has brought, I feel like I've done this career since I was aware of the world. Like it's just been part of me. And um yes, I had a brother who had severe, very, very involved physical and mental disabilities. Blind, he was um hydrocephalic. He was just a tender being and needed a lot of care.
Yeah.
And so as a kid, you hear you have a sibling and your imagination might be just, it just ran wild, and I just wondered where he was. Um and and I know my parents were abs my mom was a nurse, and so she had incredible life experience with caring for others, and their approach was to protect me from what they were going through with him. And so I would wait in the waiting room while they visited him. So again, with the imagination going and this disconnect,
What year was this?
that would have been, that was probably like 69. So I was
Okay.
like
Late
for my
60s.
earliest memory.
Okay.
Um, And so I was born in 65 and he was 2 years older.
Okay.
So, so when he was 12, I was 10, he passed. And in that moment, hearing that information, I realized my chance of knowing him was over.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And but as we are in this world, we're all connected, even if we don't physically spend time. And he stays in me. And so as I got older and I was having these life experiences, I was such a lucky kid. The ballet and the back riding, and camping and going to Disney World, all these beautiful things, and recognizing he never had or would have that chance. So I became absolutely obsessed with environments that for people. And then when I was in high school, I volunteered and worked with kids with Down syndrome, and fell in love with the population, and just thought, why would not have people in around us more? Like it was a mystery.
Yeah.
So here in Athens, the old Athens Mental Health Center, the Ridges.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So my parents lived here in Athens in the late 50s, early 60s. And this is where Timmy was born, was in Athens. And my dad said, I think you'd like Athens, Ohio. And I'm like, let's check it out. Because
Mhm.
I didn't see the point of going to college, because if
Great place.
grown-ups want you to do something, there must be a catch.
Right.
I just didn't know. And I got here and I was like, okay, I'm gonna live here the rest of my life.
Mhm.
Man, this is
So it
it.
wasn't an OU situation. It was you're going to come here to be. Did you go to OU or did you come and you set up camp? Okay.
I
So
did. I came here and to study photography.
photography.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So and it was a win-win all the way around. And I then learned about the mental health center and started volunteering up there. And
Okay.
then my sophomore year was invited to live on board in exchange for room and board. So it really it really checked all my boxes. I got to live in Athens. I've always been incredibly frugal. Like, it's like, oh, good. I don't have to, I won't have room and board. My parents won't have to pay for it. But like, are you sure you want to live there? And now as a grown up, I can't imagine what was going through his head. We've done everything in our lives to provide for you, and here you're
Right.
And so, I, and so I lived on in between two geriatric wards in a client room like anybody else.
Hmm.
And it was the 80s, so no training, no nothing. And my job was to do activities, bring people into town. And my main ward was locked men's. And that was my main concentration ward.
Okay.
And so while I was there, I was trying to figure it out while I was going to art school.
Hmm.
And basically what I was learning in class, I just brought up to the hill, and I tried all these different things. And I lived, and Anne Randolph was another student who had been up there, who had done magnificent work writing plays, putting on plays. She was just truly amazing. And she's a stand-up and a comedian now and a writer.
Hmm.
And She would be an excellent interview, by the way.
Okay, that's good. I'll take the lead.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I write one a week, so
Okay. No, she's magical.
okay.
And and what happened was trying all these different things. It turned out that just being still with another person and drawing
Mm,
um, made it so we could have a connection. We didn't have to use language. Maybe verbal wasn't part of somebody's
right.
tool belt, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and Unlocked Men's Ward, that's where this idea of having a collaborative, an art making kind of space was birthed. And so I was all in, and I got my undergraduate, went out into the world, moved to the Caribbean, said, this is nice, but I need purpose. Came back for grad school, and
Did you study in grad school?
photography, totally dyslexic. I was like, it's my workaround, you know? And and I love photography.
Mhm,
And that stops time and it tells stories.
mhm,
And deinstitutionalization happened. And to see the people I really cared about and were my friends being released into the community with limited supports, to this day we haven't recovered,
yeah,
and absolutely breaks my heart. Not that the institution was perfect,
right.
not at all, but it
Sure.
could have been better. We can always do better,
Always. Yeah,
always.
always.
But it was a foundation that beauty and grace could have become more involved. And when people are spread to the wind, it's jail is not the answer.
No.
So
Mm-mm. Or homelessness.
no, no, that's right. Isolation,
Yeah.
all of it. And so to see people devolve and wither when they were out, if you hadn't been to a grocery store in 25 years, how do you take care of yourself? So I was introduced to a sheltered workshop in town, and which I took a
What does
tour.
that mean?
A sheltered workshop is a supported work environment specifically for people with developmental differences, more of a developmental delay, and they may be dual diagnosed and have physical challenges as well. So it's a factory style. So here in Athens County, the major job available was capping and building pens.
Okay.
Okay. And it
Mhm.
was um so my first blush was, oh my God, this is perfect. There are all these people already here. This
Mhm.
big, it was on Stimson, the old Atco building. I don't know
Okay.
if you know Athens that well, but
I know a little, I know some of it, but yeah. Mhm.
okay, it was where the King Midget factory was back in the day, the little cars they used to make here.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Athens is so cool. It
It
has such
is.
a
It really
crazy,
is.
and so I thought, okay, if I squat here and what if we built a little studio? We just sold something. It was
Mhm.
perfect. Um, would people want to do it? Right. And so I was adjunct at OU for 3 years and started with some workshops over at the university in the dark room, and we did sun prints and cyanotypes. And I was like, okay, this could be really great. And through the Ohio Arts Council, we had a 3-week residency, and we made 100 paper mache birds,
Mhm.
and it turned into the Wild West. The little studio space was set up. People who would normally take all day to put their pens together because there's nothing else to do by the end of the day, right?
Mhm. Yep.
Would get done in 10 to 15 minutes.
Oh, wow.
Rush down to get a good seat in making art. And I was like,
Of
okay,
course. That's where you need to be.
that's where you need to be.
Yeah.
It was not a worker issue, it was a design issue,
Uh,
right? So if you have cerebral palsy, putting pens together could be a real challenge.
mhm.
And who cares if a machine can do it, right? It doesn't need the human quality in order for that to be done,
Mhm.
right? And we don't need a single person with the choice of one thing to do in their career to put pens together for 30 years
Right.
with a behavior plan to keep them in their seat, and a partition so that they can stay focused
Mm.
and not talk to each other.
It's like a single cell manufacturing line.
That's right. Exactly. It's
Yeah.
exactly because they have certificates to pay people below minimum wage. And
Mm.
because of all the layers of bureaucracy, it's not like you can do different jobs and make it work. You have one
That's right.
activity over and
That's right.
over. So it's a complex approach to trying to really focus it into one activity. It's like taking a group of very dynamic, unique people and making them as one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we had that, and then the next year we had it was a 10-week residency, and uh and I was listening to my host to say, like, what can I do to stay? How can we be of relevance to this larger organization so we can stay? Because it was working. I didn't pay rent. We had a budget that was this big,
Mhm.
but a lot of the outside headaches of an organization were because I was squatting, right? So we did more community involvement through workshops and inviting different people. And we went out into the community and did workshops.
Mhm.
And I could see that employment was a challenge because it wasn't like they had tons of pen orders. So most of the time people had downtime.
Yeah.
So then it was, as we were making and making and making, it was like, okay, let's design a product around the worker,
Mhm.
right? What people like to do. So when I say it's not a worker issue, it's what we did is we found things from the material stream out in the world, like that were going to go either to be recycled or thrown away,
Mhm.
and infused value
Yeah.
into these objects by the human participation in elevating this work. So one of the staff brought in a stack of printing plates from the newspaper, and she said, I don't know if you can use these. My partner works over at the Athens Messenger. Plenty more where these came from. And she put them down, and we started. I was like, these are great. It's like a canvas.
Yeah.
It's aluminum, like
Yeah.
broadside sheet. We'll paint these. We won't have to frame them, and we'll have a show. Like, it'll be great. But with the more that we used it and played with it, we could cut it with scissors. And so we had that, and we were doing, we were doing whatever on them. And Carolyn Williams was drawing flowers and flowers and flowers and flowers and flowers. And I was like, okay. And so we took her petal shapes and made petal patterns and then cut those out of the metal. And we had a visiting artist, because I believe in sharing and inviting people in. Everything I have is yours. Like,
Yeah.
that is it. And then when artists come and do artists in residence, they may share 20 years of their experience with us, their nugget, right? So Kate Kern from Cincinnati through the Ohio Arts Council, she came and we made paper sculpture. And she showed us the dart. Her technology was a dart. And she would take that paper, fold it under, and then make a two-dimensional object into a three-dimensional object.
Mhm.
Super simple technology. Sewers use it all the time, just
Mhm.
like this to this, right?
Yeah.
So that's
You're making a dart. You're making a boob and a blouse. Yep.
it. That's it. A boob and a blouse. That's it. So we inverted that boob and
Yeah.
a blouse,
Yeah.
and then instead of using staples, we used them and paper. We used the metal, a wooden block, and a screw,
Okay.
and then we built those flowers.
Mm.
And so to date, we have sold way over 39,000 of them and generated over 3.5 million in
Wow.
sales.
That's
And
awesome.
and as we were starting this, a staff member at the sheltered workshop, when I pitched this idea of coming up with a product line that we would just have to sell,
Mhm.
and that people would always be busy.
Mhm.
And the immediate response was, these people will never make anything anybody would want to buy.
Why is it that when it comes to this population of human beings, we presume incompetence?
I think because it's easier to dismiss and get out of the way, so
Mhm.
we can carry on with the able workers, and it's just out of sight, out of mind. Why are these organizations and these programs usually in the hinterlands of community? Why can't you photograph in them? Why do you have to be fingerprinted and background checks to be a volunteer? It's to protect, I think, what's happening in there.
Yeah.
Out of sight, out of mind,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And we are missing out. We, as the typical people running around, are missing out on the beauty and the value of our entire community. And then God knows to the people who are in those facilities,
Yeah.
right? I've
Yeah.
seen them across the world. I've gone to them across this country. And it is a single challenge that unifies us globally, is that we have people, we're biological meat, bones,
Mhm.
and chemistry, right? things are different in all of us.
That's right.
And then we don't know what to do with a population. And so we, and
Right.
so,
Yeah.
uh, and I also recognize that the staff member was trained. I'm not trained. I'm trained in making things work
Mhm.
and to find yes and to find solutions. He
Mhm.
was trained in a deficit model to see what isn't working, focus on that and try to fix it. I'm
Nice.
not in the business to fix anybody. It's not my business.
That's right.
My business, is that a PassionWorks necklace you're wearing?
No, it's something I made. A friend of mine made. I
Oh
would
my gosh, it
that would
looks
have been
like a
amazing if
watch.
it would have.
Ah,
No.
and it looks really close to
Thank you.
what we're working on. Is that in this universal challenge, we have come up with something, and to demonstrate the humanity in another, you can't unsee it then,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we present rainbows, unicorns, joy, and delight because that's attracting. And we want people to be comfortable, not only with people who are perceived as being different, but with the arts in general,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so everything that we do is almost a 180 of what's typical. And it's not just because we're ornery, it's because it works, right? So our design process is to find out what people love to do more of that. And it's the staff's challenge and opportunity. It's more of an opportunity to take those gifts, look at, all the stuff that
Mhm.
is waiting for its second life, and
Mhm.
at that intersect, do product development. So we don't have behavior plans. We do not have a job trainer because everybody's studying their own art process, and we get to respond to that.
Yeah, that's lovely.
It's
Yeah.
and it's super simple. I mean, the focal point of our mission and how we work is very, very, very focused. The trajectory is extreme, right?
Mhm.
And so we're in this of demonstrating what's possible and then sharing it. And that's why I should start up like programming.
Mhm.
We live in a capitalist society,
Mhm.
but we're working in you share.
Mhm.
So um
Yeah.
and so it has become an obsession because it's a matter of life and death for families and people who are seen as different.
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your legacy model? What do you think about when you think what's going to happen the next 50 years?
Years. I hope that this is, kids in Athens, and when they grow up and they grow up with us, and then they go to another school or they go get a job somewhere and they come back and they're like, I thought every community had a PassionWorks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it breaks my heart when they realize how exclusive this is.
Mhm.
And I don't want it to be. I
Yeah.
want it to be so typical.
Yeah. And you're working on that with the I'm sorry, I'm going to say the creative abundance. And where I know I watched the video that you're in Delaware, but where else have you mentored?
We have done, like, we just finished our 12th project in Indiana. Uh,
Nice.
we've been to Las Vegas, upstate New York, South Carolina, um, around, in this region. And I've done workshops throughout Chile, uh, Kosovo, went to Russia, throughout Alaska. I think I did 9 projects in Alaska.
Wow. That's
Um,
fantastic.
yeah,
So you're
it,
getting there. It's not everywhere, but it's definitely there's definitely it's starting to spiral out for sure.
yeah.
I
Well,
do hope we're getting to a space in our humanity where we can, I don't know. I go back and forth day to day, depends on what I read, because there's days where I have so much hope, and then there's days where I'm like, ah. So yeah, because yeah, I don't understand how our throwaway culture extends to humans.
well, right. And that first, there's the second video, the SROI, social return on investment,
Hmm.
really powerful data.
Yeah.
Because if we believe that people are a drain and they're only taking, then it's our responsibility to let them go and put them in situations that are the least harmful to society and themselves. And I think that's how institutions, degrade into those environments. That report speaks to the direct opposite of that thinking through the measurement of cash. Okay, so it's really,
I'll have to look
really,
at that. I haven't looked at that one yet, but I will.
it'll blow your mind
Okay.
because it's a very this process of the SROI, social return on investment, came from Europe, and the Voinovich Center at the Ohio University is studying this process. It's a formula for translating the social value of something in cash measure. And so what is the value of attracting, and this has happened, really talented people to the university who make their decision to move here because their loved one is going to have a safe and interesting place to be during the day, and a culture of a community that is accepting for people with developmental differences. What is that value? So we can attract people, retain them as well, and then we give our culture a deeper satisfaction. And all of what we do radiates through our whole community. And so our financial institution that we go to, OUCU Financial, they use our aesthetic in their branding because they want to be known as a community bank. I never imagined that, right? Our Visitors Bureau uses our aesthetic to attract people to come and experience our beautiful place, and that there are things to do here. And one of the things that the studio is able to do, because we're an arts organization that collaborates and responds to community, and our aesthetic is the intention of manifesting the spirit of Athens. And that's been our intention for 26 years. So we share our aesthetic with other agencies and businesses. But Athens Halloween, you're familiar?
I've not been there for Athens Halloween, actually. Now I know that of all the times of the years that I've not done the Athens Halloween, I tend to be out on my aunt and uncle's farm on Dutch Creek Road, honestly.
Oh, Dutch Creek.
Yeah, they have 30 acres out there, and my aunt's retired. She was the principal of Coolville Elementary.
Really?
Yeah, and my cousin is Adam Mitchell, and I don't know if you know who Adam Mitchell, the artist.
I know Butch.
Oh shit, that's my Uncle Butch. Sorry, not
I
to curse
love
at you. My Uncle
Butch
Butch is
Mitchell.
amazing.
Adam is a beautiful artist.
So I'll show you what's on my wall if you don't mind. It's Court and Union.
Oh my goodness.
It's one of Adam's, of course. So
Wow, that's under construction right now. It's going to be a boutique hotel.
oh my God, really? Yeah. So it's a small world, but I love Athens, but I've not been there for Halloween that I can remember. I go there in the fall, but usually it's around a campfire in their on their farm.
Love.
Yeah. So that's
Well,
great. You know Butch. So yeah.
I know Butch. I know
Yeah.
Butch. I adore him.
So
I worked with him when he was working with teens.
okay. Yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah. He's
But the example of Athens Halloween is that it was the scourge of the reputation of our community and the university not wanting to be a party school. And 30,000 people would line Court Street. It's nuts, right?
That is.
I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. Like all these people were coming, not the
Like New
feral,
Orleans at Halloween.
right?
Yeah.
So if you have something, either elevate it and love it. But if if you have something and you don't want it anymore, and you do this, that's where all the energy goes.
What you resist persists.
We know this to be true, so why don't we live differently?
Yeah.
So we pitched to the university and said, we'd love to shift the narrative of Halloween, and we would like to do a month-long residency. And we ended up working with first-year students primarily, building giant puppets and costumes, and Arts for Ohio, which is a arts supportive organization at the university. And in 2012, we started doing this. And and the personality of Halloween has totally shifted. People don't skedaddle out of town.
Mm,
Families are on Court Street in the afternoon of the block party, right? Trick or treating, blah, 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 all these activities. Then the puppet parade comes. We kick
mm,
off the block party. There's stages on Court Street. And it's become a very attractive event. And our Visitors Bureau uses our puppets to attract people to our region.
that's fantastic. Yeah.
So, so yeah, it's one of my favorite things that the studio does, just because I get to sit behind a sewing machine and,
Yeah.
answer calls
Yeah.
in one spot.
So tell me, what do you want people to walk away with when they visit? You bring people into the city, they hear the story, the passion flower and all of that. What do you hope they walk away with a better understanding of?
There's just so much joy and opportunity in our people, places, and things. Just that with intention and love and sincerity, we can build together better community. We don't have to wait for anybody. Like, we can do it around a card table. It doesn't. There's so much to be done, and with the vision of connection, purpose, and belonging, and working through there and authentically collaborating and learning how to communicate and do these things, build together, and then see the evidence of ourselves within our own community.
Mhm.
Um, there is a significant power in the people, where they are, who they're with, and what they have already.
Yeah.
You don't have to wait.
Yeah.
You just don't. And the power of artists in residency work, like, I believe in it deeply. And you there right now, other than work, I mean, there's not a place where you can study it. So I'm hoping that that will continue to grow, so artists can see how they can use their skills and shift them into becoming, leveraging their skills into their own business model that they can create. But to your question, I believe that anybody who walks into our space, every single person leaves as a differently, with a different perspective. When the second show that we did was beautiful, was probably one of the best projects we ever did, and it illustrated a poem celebrating a baby boy who was born into our community with Down syndrome. And that project was a gift to the family celebrating this child. And the family came in. It was an illustration of a poem, which I'm happy to send to you, that was written for them. And they had a picnic on the ground, and they enjoyed it, and it was beautiful,
Mm,
and they felt it.
mhm.
I thought it was done. And then my friend Rosemary Basili, she had her class come and write a response paper. And all, there was the art and this, that, and the other. But one student wrote about his regret as a kid, because he and neighborhood kids would beat up another kid who had developmental delay, to some difference specifically.
Yeah.
But he wrote about his regret about that.
Mm,
And I was like,
yeah.
if the arts can shift perspective, because you can say all day long,
Yeah.
you know, don't be a jerk.
That's
Like,
right.
you can say that it means nothing.
Yeah.
You have to have an experience that shifts your mind.
That's right. Yeah.
We're providing the opportunity for you to pay attention, or just to imagine differently.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing. People come into that studio and start crying.
Oh, yeah.
They start laughing. They just run around. Their eyes light up. There's some who have questions, some who just want to soak it in.
Mhm.
Our artists are so welcoming. Nobody, and I work with Dr. Lynn Harder at the Storytelling Institute, and we talk a lot about this concept of misfits.
Mm.
And nobody wants to be a misfit. Nobody, right? Our
Yeah,
artists,
the misfit toys, right?
just,
Like yeah.
right. So at first blush, it may feel like our little studio is an island of misfit toys. Look at all, but it's really whoever's walking in our door. They're the newbies,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
But you can't walk 2 feet in without somebody saying hi, and they'll bring you in. And so we're
Mhm.
all together in there.
Mhm.
And so there are no misfits. We're all okay. And the only thing I can change, I'm not a therapist, not interested.
Yeah.
I can change the environment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And And that's it.
And I think what you've created, like when I guess the way I experience it is that in a world and a culture of posturing, you work with a population that doesn't have any interest in being anything other than genuine and being loved for being genuine. And so when that misfit walks through the door, they're forced to deal with authenticity at its core when so many of us spend our days posturing in a culture that requires it.
That's right. That's
So,
absolutely on the nose because we work with Denny Nafziger, who wrote the poem that we first did. And she's been writing poetry collaboratively with our artists, with her students and her sister, anyway, in lots of different configurations. And we try to understand how it's so good. Like it's so good. And she said, you know what? These artists don't hold on to cliche. It's all their authentic voice.
that's
It's
right.
their perspective, and they're brave, and they let it out. And so it's really attracting and authentic and fresh and familiar because it's so, I don't, try to understand it. Sometimes I just like just enjoy it. The other
Right.
times I do want to break it down. Like,
Yeah.
how is this working? Like, how is our brand recognized from 60 feet, whatever we make?
Yeah.
People
Yeah.
ask me that all the time, and I'm like, I have some ideas,
Mm.
but it's just, but bottom line, it is. How do we have 37 employees? Like, how do 37 people plus over 3,000 volunteers manage to have a singular voice that's recognizable by those who are a titch familiar with us?
Yeah. 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 Because they're all they have no choice other than be the authentic, and their very existence is an act of bravery and courage, and that's really hard for people. So I think that yeah, the collective is that authenticity.
Well, and we're so trained to think that if we're going to be successful and be recognized for our success, we have to be independent all the time, right? It's such an American thing.
Oh, it
Like,
is totally. Yeah.
you know, but ultimately we're in constant collaboration.
We have to be. We wouldn't survive otherwise.
There's no
Yeah.
choice.
We
You
have
got to
no.
use your car, go down the road, fill it with gas, put on
Right.
some clothes you didn't make,
Right.
eat some food you didn't grow. I mean, it's like we know this.
We do.
We know this. But especially people with developmental differences, we think there has to be hyper independence
Mm.
for people who are absolutely like part of our ecosystem
Mhm.
who need different kind of collaboration,
Right.
whether it's using the restroom or eating or whatever,
Mhm.
becomes more profound. Like you can see it.
Right.
And
Right.
and so um but the magic of our collaborative process is that at first blush people are like, oh, you force people to collaborate, and it's like, no, it's a choice. You don't have to. You can
Don't
do
have
your own thing,
to. Yeah.
but it elevates the voices of all when we collaborate the way because we respect each other's practice.
Yeah. Hmm.
So everyone's elevated. If somebody makes a flower this big and we project it and make it 8 feet tall,
Hmm.
that person who made that little teeny flower could never do that.
Right.
But I can do that.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And my desire is to amplify the talent and the beauty that is surrounding us, not to diminish it or
Right.
water it down at all.
Yeah. Or hide it away.
Nope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. When I have a couple logistical questions that I wanted to, so I don't forget. When your undergrad and your graduate school were both photography, or and you just said you went to art school, so I didn't know if you studied other forms of art or if photography was your focus.
Photography was my focus. I came here to do journalism and documentary because I
In
wanted to
journalism
be.
school. Yeah.
Yep. I was in Viscom and which is scripts and they're amazing because I
Yeah.
wanted to be of use. And I never grew up knowing an artist.
Mm.
And so when I was at that age, I was like, who cares about my feelings? Like, who cares? Like
Right.
at, that it made no sense to me. but I kept being pulled into, meeting people and being pulled into these art classes. And then I realized after doing documentary for a while, I was just telling my story over and over as much as I tried, right? And do as much as I could. My
Yeah.
style, my attraction, I was at least 50%, even if I tried to be objective, right?
Yeah.
Which is illusion.
Mhm.
And um, and then through the artist, and so when I became an artist in residence with the I gave up and I just studied photography, which was uh fine art photography, which had a documentary style that I developed and did a lot of alternative processes like cyanotite, like anyway, lots of different ancient in the world of photography processes, bookmaking, collage, like all those things. I realized that doing artist in residency work gave the voice to the participants.
Mhm.
So the most authentic stories I can help cultivate are giving the power to the people who are telling them.
Mhm.
And so to me, the studio has become my documentary series of creating a space where people are telling their own stories.
Have you always been crafty, known how to sew, or like when did you pick that up along the way?
Yeah, I was afraid to sew. I was always attracted to it, because it's fun.
It
You
is
know,
fun. I love to sew. Yep.
oh, I love to sew.
So do I.
Oh, every morning.
Oh
I sew
wow.
every morning. I
Wow.
don't, I was just talking to, I've been on the phone all day and it was funny. I was just talking to another director. I was like, this is my office. I have designed myself so I do not have an office because if I made it more convenient, I'd be in front of a computer all day.
Right.
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 And so, and my child, like, I don't know, my stubbornness. I'm just like, I am not going to have an
There you
office,
go.
but
Good.
I'm officing all the time. So,
Right. Always. Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but I was attracted at making things, forts and, climbing trees and this and that. And I became really attached to photography. I had an artist in residence come and give us cameras when I was in the sixth grade and we developed the film in the
Oh,
classroom.
cool.
And
Yeah.
I pulled that out of the tank, man. I was like, this is it.
That's
This is what,
magic.
that's it. And
Straight up magic. Yeah.
yeah. So I did yearbook and learned how to, and students, my fellow students taught me how to do photography.
Okay. Okay. So that's cool. So sewing was always just part of you.
Sewing it was an interest. I was too afraid to do it. And I learned how to sew through PassionWorks and inviting visiting artists. So
Oh, cool.
Susan Shy and Kate Gorman, they came and they sewed and it just really I haven't stopped since.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
what you're afraid of is also kind of what excites you.
Hmm.
It's hard to distinguish fear from excitement
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. That's really cool. Yeah. I started in high school sewing my own scrunchies. Like,
ah,
because they're so easy, you know? I was like,
right?
I had a scrunchie that matched every one of my outfits because I could just make them. But those were the 90s and that was important. So, but yeah. And then I went from there and like now I just PJ pants are my jam. I will sew like everybody PJ pants in the family. So
Nice.
I'm not really, it's not like I'm not a dressmaker by any stretch, but I will craft with them with the sewing machine. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that. I do. I enjoy that. Okay. Well, I think I have more than enough that I can write about for a 800 word column.